a queen, a Catholic martyr, a conspirator, and the most dangerous woman in Europe. Her own cousin kept her prisoner for 19 years because she was too dangerous to free and too royal to kill. Until the day she forced Elizabeth's hand and walked to the executioner's block wearing red. Scotland, 1542. A baby girl was born at Linlithgow Palace. Her father, King James V of Scotland, was dying. When news of his daughter's birth reached him, he reportedly turned his face to the wall. The Stuart dynasty had come to Scotland through a woman, he said. It would end through one. He died 6 days later. His daughter was 6 days old. She was already Queen of Scotland. Her name was Mary Stuart, Mary Queen of Scots. In the 44 years that followed, she would be Queen of Scotland, Queen of France, and claim the throne of England. She would be married 3 times. She would be accused of murder. She would spend 19 years as a prisoner. She would be put on trial for treason. And on the 8th of February, 1587, she would walk into a great hall at Fotheringhay Castle, strip off her black outer robes, revealing a dress of blood red beneath, and kneel at the executioner's block. This is the story of Mary Queen of Scots, and almost none of it is what history books tell you. But to understand how a queen ended up kneeling at a block in an English castle, you must first understand the world she was born into. A world where being born female and royal was not a blessing. It was a death sentence in slow motion. Mary became Queen of Scotland at 6 days old. In the Scotland of 1542, this was not an unusual situation. Scottish kings had a habit of dying young and violently. Mary's great-grandfather James III had been killed in battle. Her grandfather James IV had been killed in battle. Her father James V had died at 30 years old, likely of despair after the catastrophic Scottish defeat at the Battle of Solway Moss. The Stuarts were not a lucky family. Mary spent her earliest years in Scotland under the protection of her mother, Mary of Guise, a French noblewoman who had married into the Scottish throne and who understood instinctively that her daughter's greatest danger was not from abroad. It was from the Protestant English king to the south, Henry VIII of England, who wanted Mary for his son, not out of affection, but out of strategy. Marrying the infant Scottish queen to the English prince would effectively absorb Scotland into England. Mary of Guise refused, and Henry responded with a campaign of raids and attacks on Scotland so brutal that historians gave it a name. The rough wooing, burning towns, destroying abbeys, killing Scottish men, women, and children, all to force Scotland to hand over its infant queen. Mary of Guise's response was to send her daughter away to France, where Mary would be safe, and where she would grow up not as a Scottish queen, but as a French princess. Because what happened to Mary in France and what she lost there set in motion everything that followed. Every decision she made, every mistake, every catastrophe, all of it traces back to those years in France and to a boy who died too young. Mary arrived in France in 1548. She was 5 years old. She was immediately welcomed into the French royal court, where she would be educated alongside the royal children of France, including the Dauphin, the crown prince, Francis, a quiet, sickly boy, who was devoted to Mary from almost the moment he met her. Mary flourished in France. She was tall, graceful, exceptionally well educated. She spoke 6 languages. She wrote poetry. She played the lute. She was, by all contemporary accounts, one of the most charming and magnetic personalities at one of the most sophisticated courts in Europe. In 1558, she married Francis. It was a genuine love match, remarkable for a royal marriage of the era. And at the age of 15, Mary Queen of Scots became Queen of France as well. For 1 year, she was the most powerful woman in Europe, the Queen of France, the Queen of Scotland, and, in the view of Catholic Europe, the rightful Queen of England, because Henry VIII's daughter, Elizabeth, who had just taken the English throne, was considered illegitimate by Catholics, the daughter of Anne Boleyn, a woman the Pope had never recognized as Henry's legitimate wife. In Catholic eyes, the true Queen of England was Mary Stuart, and then Francis died. December 1560. He was 17 years old, and Mary's world collapsed. She was 18, a widow, queen of a country she had left at 5 years old, and no longer Queen of France. She had to go home, to a Scotland she barely knew. That had become, in her absence, bitterly Protestant. The Scotland Mary returned to in 1561 was not the Scotland she had left. It was a country in the middle of a religious revolution, and Mary, Catholic, French in her habits, and female, was almost everything the new Protestant Scotland feared and resented. Mary arrived back in Scotland in August 1561. She was 19 years old, a French widow, a Catholic queen returning to a Protestant country. The Protestant preacher John Knox, the most powerful religious voice in Scotland, was waiting for her. He had written a pamphlet just 3 years earlier called "The First Blast of the Trumpet Against the Monstrous Regimen of Women." It argued that female rulers were unnatural, against God's law, an abomination. It had been directed at the Catholic queens of the time, but it applied equally to Mary. Knox would later have several face-to-face meetings with Mary. By all accounts, Mary held her own. She argued, she challenged, she refused to be silenced. But Knox represented a Scotland that would never fully accept her. For several years, Mary ruled with considerable skill. She was tolerant of the Protestant faith. She made no attempt to force Catholicism on her subjects. She navigated the impossible politics of Scotland with intelligence and grace. And then she married again. Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, tall, handsome, and catastrophically unsuited for power. The marriage was a disaster almost from the beginning. Darnley was vain, jealous, and politically incompetent. When he became convinced that Mary was having an affair with her Italian secretary, David Rizzio, almost certainly untrue, he participated in something that shocked even brutal 16th century Scotland. On the 9th of March 1566, a group of armed nobles, led by Darnley, burst into Mary's private supper room, dragged David Rizzio away from the supper table, and stabbed him 56 times in front of the pregnant queen. Mary never forgave Darnley, and 10 months later, Darnley was dead, murdered. His house blown up with gunpowder, his body found in the garden, strangled. The gunpowder had not killed him. Someone had finished the job by hand. And the man most suspected of organizing the murder was James Hepburn, the Earl of Bothwell, who, 3 months later, Mary married. The marriage to Bothwell was the act that destroyed Mary in Scotland. Whether she was complicit in Darnley's murder, whether she was coerced into the marriage, or whether she had genuinely fallen for the man suspected of killing her husband, Scotland decided it had had enough. Scotland turned on Mary almost overnight. The Protestant lords rose in rebellion. Mary's army faced them at Carberry Hill in June 1567, but her soldiers refused to fight. They melted away. Mary surrendered. Bothwell fled. He would die years later in a Danish prison, reportedly insane, chained to a post for years. Mary was imprisoned in Lochleven Castle, a fortress on an island in the middle of a loch. She was 24 years old. She was forced to abdicate, to sign away her throne, in favor of her 1-year-old son, James, the son she would never see again. She miscarried twins in captivity. The physical and psychological toll of captivity began to break her, but not entirely. Because in May 1568, Mary escaped. With the help of a young man besotted with her, she slipped out of Lochleven, raised an army, 11,000 men who still believed in her, and faced the Protestant forces at the Battle of Langside, and lost. Within 11 days of her escape, Mary's army was defeated. She made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She would flee to England, to throw herself on the mercy of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. It was, almost certainly, the greatest mistake she ever made. Elizabeth's mercy was a very specific and very dangerous thing. And Mary was about to spend 19 years discovering exactly what it looked like. Because Elizabeth's problem with Mary was not simply political, it was existential. Mary alive and free was the greatest threat to Elizabeth's throne. But Mary alive and imprisoned was a perpetual focus for Catholic plots. And Mary dead was a martyr. Elizabeth spent 19 years trying to find a solution to this problem, and never quite did. Mary arrived in England in May 1568. She expected welcome. She expected sanctuary. She expected a meeting with her cousin. She received none of these things. Elizabeth never met Mary, not once, in 19 years of proximity. The two most famous queens of the 16th century never set eyes on each other. Instead, Mary was placed under house arrest in a series of castles and manor houses across England, always under guard, always watched, always the focus of Catholic hopes and Protestant fears. 3 major plots were hatched to free Mary and place her on the English throne: the Ridolfi plot, the Throckmorton plot, the Babington plot. Each one was uncovered by Elizabeth's spy master, Sir Francis Walsingham, the most effective intelligence operative in Elizabethan England, a man who, some historians believe, did not merely uncover plots against Elizabeth, but actively encouraged them, allowed them to develop, gathered enough evidence, and then crushed them. Because each uncovered plot weakened Mary and strengthened the argument that Mary was too dangerous to live. The final plot, the Babington plot of 1586, was the one that finally gave Walsingham what he needed: letters in code between Mary and the conspirators, letters in which Mary appeared to approve the assassination of Elizabeth. Some historians believe the letters were forged, or at least edited, by Walsingham's agents, to include the specific detail, Mary's approval of the assassination, that would make her conviction for treason inevitable. We will never know for certain. What we know is that in October 1586, Mary was put on trial for treason, with no legal representation. In a court she had no authority to recognize. She was not English, and she was convicted. All but one of the 36 judges voted guilty. The death warrant was drawn up, and Elizabeth did something extraordinary. She refused to sign it for 3 months, unable to bring herself to do it. Finally, in February 1587, she signed, and then, almost immediately, claimed she had not meant for it to be acted upon. Her secretary, who had sent the warrant, was imprisoned for acting on it. Elizabeth wept, or performed weeping. It is still debated which. But the warrant was signed, and at Fotheringhay Castle, preparations began. And what happened at Fotheringhay on the 8th of February 1587 was one of the strangest, most theatrical, most deliberately designed scenes in the history of royal execution. Because Mary knew exactly what she was doing. Every detail was planned. Every gesture was intentional. And the message she sent that morning echoed across Europe for decades. Mary spent her last night writing letters to the King of France, to the Pope, to her servants. She distributed her possessions. She prayed. She did not sleep. In the morning, she was informed it was time. She entered the Great Hall at Fotheringhay Castle at approximately 10 in the morning. The hall was packed with witnesses, 300 people, come to watch a queen die. Mary wore black, the color of mourning. As she was stripped of her outer garments by her weeping ladies-in-waiting, the assembled witnesses saw what was underneath, a dress of deep crimson red, the color of Catholic martyrdom. The message was unmistakable. You may execute me, but I die a martyr, not a traitor. She knelt at the block. She bound her own eyes with a white cloth embroidered with gold. Her ladies-in-waiting were weeping. She told them not to. She laid her head on the block. She said, "Into the wood. In Domine confido. In God I trust." The executioner raised his axe and missed. The first blow struck the back of her head, not her neck. The second blow severed most of the neck. A third cut through the remaining tissue. The executioner reached for her head, lifted it, cried, "God save the Queen." And Mary's auburn hair fell to the floor. It was a wig. Beneath it, Mary had the short gray hair of a 44-year-old woman who had spent 19 years as a prisoner. And then, from beneath her skirts, her small dog appeared. It had been hidden there the entire time. It lay down between her head and her body and refused to move. It had to be carried away. The eyewitness Robert Winkfield recorded that Mary's lips continued to move for a full 15 minutes after her head was severed. Her clothes were burned immediately, so they could not be kept as relics. Her body was embalmed, hidden in a sealed lead coffin for 6 months, buried secretly at Peterborough Cathedral. Elizabeth refused her request to be buried in France, and then Elizabeth wept and raged and blamed everyone around her for the execution she had ordered. And the woman she had kept prisoner for 19 years was finally irrevocably gone. But Mary Queen of Scots did not lose, not in the end, because what happened after her death is perhaps the most extraordinary part of the entire story. And it is the part that Elizabeth, who ordered her execution, never got to see. Elizabeth I of England died on the 24th of March, 1603. She died aged 69, unmarried, childless, the last of the Tudor dynasty. The crown of England passed to the nearest Protestant heir, Mary Queen of Scots' son, James. James VI of Scotland became James I of England. The woman Elizabeth had executed had won. Mary's bloodline, not Elizabeth's, inherited everything. The throne that Elizabeth had protected so ferociously, for which she had imprisoned Mary for 19 years, for which she had signed the death warrant she would spend the rest of her life insisting she had not meant to sign, passed to Mary's son. In 1612, James had his mother's remains moved from Peterborough to Westminster Abbey, where he commissioned for her a grand monumental tomb with a beautiful effigy just across from the tomb of Elizabeth herself. The two queens who never met, whose rivalry defined an era, whose conflict cost one of them her head, now lie 15 feet apart, for eternity. And the line that sits on the British throne today, the line that has continued unbroken from the 17th century, is Mary's, not Elizabeth's, the woman they called a traitor, the woman they executed in a castle in Northamptonshire, is the ancestor of every British monarch since. She did not lose. She was simply made to wait. Mary Queen of Scots was Queen of Scotland at 6 days old. She was Queen of France at 15. She was a prisoner at 24, and she was dead at 44. She wore red to her execution to tell the world she was a martyr, not a criminal. Her executioner missed twice. Her dog refused to leave her body. Her lips moved for 15 minutes after her head was taken, and her son became King of England, making everything Elizabeth had done, everything she had feared, come true. History has judged both women, Elizabeth as the great Protestant queen who saved England, Mary as the tragic Catholic queen who lost everything. But the truth, as always, is darker and more complicated than either version. Subscribe to Veil of Europa. Every week we pull back the curtain on the women and men that history flattened into simple stories. The dark truth is always more interesting. We'll see you in the shadows.